Good afternoon or good morning if you happen to be on the West Coast, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Supporting and Training Your Craft and Field Service Employees with SAP SuccessFactors. My name is Rihanna Thompson, and I will be your moderator for today's presentation. This webinar is part 2 of our Human Capital Management series. In part 1 of this series, we discussed how to engage and empower your professional employees with SAP SuccessFactors Human Experience Management Suite, or HXM. Today, we are joined by Rebecca Murray, Managing Partner of Illumity's SuccessFactors practice. Before handing it over to Rebecca, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenter, so if you have any questions throughout the broadcast, feel free to type them into the chat. However, in the interest of time, we'll try to get to the majority of the questions at the end of the session. With that being said, I hope everyone enjoys today's presentation, and I'll hand it over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Brianna, and thank you everyone for joining today. I'm excited to present to you SAP SuccessFactors for production and field service employees. We'll be taking a look at how the SAP solution related to SuccessFactors can meet the unique needs of employees who work in a non-traditional office setting. So thank you for joining today as we dive right in. Our agenda for today is as follows. We'll start with some brief introductions. We'll talk about the definition of that production, craft, or field service employee, how that might differ a little bit from an office-based employee. We'll look at how some of the tools that SAP SuccessFactors offers can really help meet the needs of those particular employees. We'll talk about self-services. We'll spend some time talking about mobile applications. We'll have a system demonstration. And then we will wrap up with a quick summary and get to any questions that you may have. So thank you for joining today, and let's go ahead and get started. Just as a quick introduction to Illumity as an organization, we are an SAP partner based in North America. We are a platinum partner, so we're at the highest level of partnership available with SAP. We are an integration and management consultancy group. We specialize in the SAP product suites and implement, start to finish and then ongoing from an ongoing maintenance and support standpoint. I'm so happy to be able to help you and assist you with any of your SAP related needs. In terms of me, your host and speaker for today, I've been working in this space for about 15 years. I've always focused on the HR or human capital management or human experience management, as you might also hear, side of the SAP family. I've been implementing and working with customers for that entire time. So I have a lot of experience with some of the day-to-day needs that organizations face. And then I myself used to be, prior to working on the systems side of things, a field engineer at an MEP consulting organization. So I have a lot of exposure to being out and working in the field and working with colleagues and team members who spend their time in the field as well. And for those of you who manage or help facilitate HR business practices for those groups of employees, you know that it's a little bit different when people are out working away from the office or even working on company property but away from a desk in terms of communication, collaboration, engagement, and interaction. So those are all things that I hope we'll be able to address in today's presentation. Okay, let's talk about the profile of a craft or field service employee or production worker. Many similar characteristics, but the main one that kind of separates them from our last webinar in this series, which was around professional employees, is that these folks are typically or traditionally not sitting in front of a computer all day. So in terms of being able to engage with them, collect updated data from them, push updated data and announcements out to them, sometimes you have to go about doing that in a different manner. So according to the Department of Labor, a craft worker is a skilled manual worker, usually of a high skill level, having gone through some type of thorough and comprehensive knowledge process training to go about mastering their work. And then, of course, we know a field service employee is anyone who performs a job out in the field, so away from a company property or a company site. I think you can also extend this definition for today's purpose to perhaps include other employees who don't typically work at a desk, even if they're still on company property. So thinking not just of miners being out at a mine site, or construction workers or repair people being out on operating sites, but you could also extend this to production workers who are working on a manufacturing line. Because oftentimes they don't have access readily available to computers or laptops or tablets or things like that. So the different needs and means of needing to communicate and collaborate with these employees, all fall similarly under the same umbrella. So a few characteristics. Oftentimes these employees are paid on an hourly basis, not always, but oftentimes. And you may encounter unions working with these employees. So unions may control certain aspects of training, of safety and compliance, of course, aspects related to pay and wages and benefits. So you might have some intricacies that you work with in that capacity. Typically, these workers have a low degree of work freedom. And what I mean by that is they are not always able to set their own schedules because a lot of times their work is schedule or shift-based to ensure even coverage over particular periods of time. And while some craft or field service workers work independently, such as a repair person, many of them often collaborate or work in group environments, such as construction employees at a construction site or miners at a mine site, even manufacturing employees who work, on an assembly line, that each person is performing some type of task, that these tasks relate to each other, either in parallel or in sequence, or that one person's activity or role or task is dependent on another's activity or role or task. So that's what I mean by a low degree of work freedom. And oftentimes safety is a high priority or high focus for these individuals and their supervisors, just because of the nature of the work that they're doing, that they are outside of a traditional company site where more environmental variables come into play. They may be operating pieces of equipment or machinery that require some type of advanced training or level of proficiency, and that in many cases inherently pose some type of safety risk if not operated, according to the book. And then, of course, when you combine those variables, environmental and site-specific, safety just really becomes a main focus for these groups of employees. So that's a little bit about the type of employee that we'll be focusing on today and how we can meet some of their specific needs. Oftentimes when we think of field service or craft employees, some things come to mind, and depending on your industry and your location, you may find that it is hard or difficult to find skilled employees in these particular areas. You may also encounter higher turnover. You may find that it is difficult to keep up levels of employee satisfaction. Organizations that have unions associated with them sometimes have some extra barriers or extra provisions that you have to work with. But mainly when I think about these groups of employees, I think of them as out and about and on the go, and not sitting in front of a laptop or a desktop for the majority of their day. So when we think of them working in this capacity, and how do we engage with them? How do we make sure that they feel connected to our organization? How do we make sure that they're satisfied in the work that they do? And ultimately, how do we retain them in our organization? We have to think outside the box a little bit. because we're not able to just walk down the hall and see them on a regular basis, or invite them, to a lunch and learn where we give them a free lunch and talk about how happy they should be at the company. Sometimes we have to just do things a little bit differently. The other thing that, depending on your industry and your location, some of my customers don't always focus on development opportunities for their craft and field service employees. And I think sometimes that can be a little detrimental because, of course, opportunities for development leads to employee growth leads to satisfaction leads to higher retention, as you can see on the right-hand side. But job satisfaction and employee satisfaction in these types of work environments also leads to more focused work, and that results in a safe working environment, so lower rate of safety incidents. Okay, let's go ahead and tie this all into SAP SuccessFactors. Traditionally, many people have thought about SuccessFactors as really being geared towards a white-collar worker, a professional who works in an office and has a lot of work freedom, and someone where we need to create a career path for to get them into a management or executive position. And certainly SuccessFactors does all of that. But we can do that in a similar fashion for our craft and field service employees too, and put a little bit of a spin on it to make it these particular pieces readily accessible through self-service and through mobile applications, and also put a spin on items that are of particular relevance to these types of employees, particularly around safety, around compliance, and around training. So just a little review of self-service. For those of you who haven't used self-service in your current role, or maybe you're starting to expand it out, self-service is a means for employees to make updates to their own information within a system, to make requests for things that they might have a need for, and to receive information through the system, in this case from an HR business partner or the HR organization as a whole. And so some examples that we might see are things like address changes, updates to emergency contact information and personal contact information, direct deposit information. And when I think about this group of employees, having an up-to-date address so that a paycheck can be mailed, or having an up-to-date direct deposit information so that a pay deposit can be made, is of the utmost importance. If we're working with old information there, then people are not getting their pay at the right location or to the right account. And again, they're not in the office to be able to walk down and tell you that on the spot. So we need to give them a simple and easy way to relay that information to us. The really nice thing about enabling employee self-service in a system is that the person doing the entry, the employee, they know this information better than anyone else. So no need to fill out a paper form and do some type of dual entry or manual maintenance. Having the employee update this information right in the system, using a workflow for review and approval means you'll get the most up-to-date information directly from the source. Another thing that is really nice about the SAP SuccessFactors system is the streamlined approach we take to accessing things within our system. So this is a screenshot of our recently released and renewed homepage. You can see that it focuses on streamlining tasks and information. So right here, logging into this particular homepage, I can access my learning. I can go in and request time off. I can go in and review a safety briefing, and I can request field equipment. I don't need to navigate around through a menu or click here and then here and then here to get somewhere. I can go in and access the pieces that I need to right here in front of me. So if there are perhaps scenarios where your field or craft service employees are not accessing the system on a regular basis, sometimes it can be confusing in any system how to get around. We've gone ahead and mitigated that by putting everything right on the home page that they might have a need for. And in a single click, they can go through and access these pieces and complete these processes. So no digging around, no hunting around. Everything's just right there at your fingertips with a single click. Another thing that we have available in the SAP SuccessFactors solution is the ability to have on-the-job trainings and safety checklists. This is actually a bit of functionality I think that is sometimes overlooked in our system, that we have this available. Available for either a supervisor or a foreperson to pull up some type of on-the-job observation, or for an employee to open up an on-the-job training or a safety checklist for them to follow. Right now we're looking at it through the self-service view, but this is available through the mobile application as well. So for someone out in the field, either a supervisor with a tablet or an employee with a smartphone device, if they get stuck in a scenario or need to consult some type of safety checklist or training guide or material, they have that available to them. The other thing that's nice about this particular screen that you're seeing here is that this provides instant and real-time feedback for this particular employee, in this case, Ed Allen, that a foreman or supervisor could observe his work and provide feedback so that things can be done better the next time. And they can put in notes, supporting information. You can attach attachments such as pictures if you wanted to. And this might, in this case, this red X might be a scenario that warrants some type of additional training or some additional safety reminders to make sure that a task is being done in the correct manner. So for a foreperson or a supervisor to go out and perform these on-the-job trainings to get that real-time information and feedback, compile it into a report for the day, will help out across the board in terms of safety and reducing incidents. Another thing that we have available in our system is the ability to do performance evaluations in a side-by-side capacity. I know for many of my organizations that I work with, they don't always do performance reviews for their field service or craft employees, that they save those performance reviews for their professional or office-based employees. But at the end of the day, I think there's an opportunity to give feedback to all employees across the board, regardless of the role that they have. And it may not warrant a full-blown performance review, with all sorts of things being evaluated. It might just be as simple as talking about, adhering to safety measures, delivering high-quality work, being compliant in certain areas. And it may just be a 1, 2, 3 or 1 through 5 and a quick entry there by a supervisor or a manager. So the ability to give some feedback, even in a streamlined or simplistic fashion, I think is really very helpful. People like to know how they're doing, how and where they can improve, and if there's opportunity for growth and development. And having a performance evaluation, even a simplistic one, is a nice way to go about being able to do that. We also have the ability within SAP SuccessFactors to have what we call quick guides. These can be step-by-step instructions on how to accomplish a particular task. We can also link to instruction manuals for certain pieces of equipment or to standard operating procedures for when someone is out in the field and a scenario or an incident occurs. And I say out in the field, right now we're looking at the web-based version, but these are also available on the mobile device as well. So for someone to be out in the field, perhaps operating a piece of machinery, driving a truck, they get into a car accident or there's a flat tire, who are they supposed to call? What steps are they supposed to take? To be able to open up a mobile device and review this information is extremely helpful. Likewise, if they are encountering some scenario that they don't encounter on a regular basis, and they know there are 10 steps to resolving that scenario and they just can't remember what they are, they can come here and pull up a checklist of those 10 steps. So being able to put information at people's fingertips, regardless of where they are, makes it easy for them to successfully perform their role in a safe and compliant manner. Okay, let's talk a little bit about mobile applications. I know with different groups of employees, different organizations sometimes have a little hesitancy about deploying mobile functionality. Sometimes there's this thought that field service or craft employees who do not, on a regular basis work with technology, that they might not be proficient at using the mobile application. And probably 7 years ago or so, I would have agreed with you. But over the past 5 to 7 years, we have just seen this remarkable shift to employee groups, regardless of the type of work they perform, having smart devices, either a phone or a tablet, and just being very, very proficient with them for personal use. So having a personal smartphone and doing some type of mobile app there, playing some type of game, receiving text messages and notifications, this is becoming more commonplace for employees regardless of the type of work that they do or the environment in which they work. And so a lot of our customers have been extending this new familiarity with mobile technology by offering our mobile applications to employees that they maybe traditionally would not have in the past. And we are seeing excellent adoption rates and excellent feedback from these groups of employees who in the past maybe did not have an easy way to communicate back and forth with their organization. So when we think about accessing a system like SAP SuccessFactors, we try to think of a medium with which different employees will access. And of course, if you don't sit in front of a desk all day long, then having that desktop or laptop application is probably not for you. You probably need an easier and more effective way to access the solution. And so in comes the concept of tablets and smartphones or other mobile devices on which we can deploy mobile applications. Our entire solution, SAP SuccessFactors, is also fully mobile enabled. So the sites, the laptop or desktop-based site can actually be pulled up on your mobile device without the application installed. And so a few different options there. But being able to have that self-service functionality for employees and for managers on a mobile device is just so extremely convenient and so extremely helpful. And one of the things that I'll mention as I'm looking at this screen and looking at the tablet piece in the middle is that our mobile application is specifically designed to have capabilities for multiple users' use, which means that you can have a tablet or two at a job site, at a site trailer, at a particular workstation, out in a field capacity for employees to be able to access if they don't have their own smartphone device, where the multi-user features and functionality will log people in and out, will kind of reduce the numbers of notifications that are individual to a particular employee, instead kind of put it in this multi-user mode. So don't be afraid of putting some tablets out there in different non-traditional work environments. They are designed to be used by multiple users at a time. And then, of course, having a smartphone means getting those individual messages, individual alerts, and really just being on the go, being able to look up information, to provide those address changes, to pull up those quick start guides, to look at those safety checklists and all those types of things available through the mobile application. When it comes to the mobile experience and your craft or field service workers, we basically have the ability to replicate all of the processes from that desktop or laptop experience right into the mobile device. So there's really no functionality that they might miss out on. We do also support online learning, so mobile learning, with the ability to have offline content as well. So if you have employees who work in areas where there's spotty connectivity, or they're down, inside a mine site without network connectivity and need to be able to access a quick guide or a safety reference material, using a company tablet or something like that, they will have the ability to do so, which I think is really nice and also reassuring. It also allows these employees to have access to HR processes that they previously may not have had access to in a very direct manner. You probably have scenarios now where you've got, a general HR email address that people email, or a number for people to call, or some paper forms, at different job sites or work environments. And you may not get information in a timely manner because filling out a form or making a call sometimes is not something that occurs to workers as they're going about doing their day-to-day, because they're working in that collaborative or assembly-based format. They don't always have the opportunity to engage in those things throughout the day. But having a mobile device where they can access it anytime or anywhere gives them the ability to relay information to you. From a manager standpoint, it also gives managers the ability to input information around performance and to pull up basic team contact information. So you can have a team roster with email addresses or with phone numbers for text messaging, which can be done right through the app as well, so that you can remain in contact with your team. The ability to show up to a job site and have a job list roster with contact information, and to send out a text message, right on the spot to someone who perhaps is late or has trouble finding the site or something like that, just makes it easy and accessible for everyone. Okay, here are some of the things within our mobile application that are really geared towards self-services and specific to kind of the craft or field service employee. First of all, a quick organizational chart. So to be able to see who you're working with, who you report to, what different work teams may look like, especially helpful if you're trying to coordinate someone to cover a shift for you, or if you're a manager and you're looking for people, attendance-wise, who's there, who's not there. Being able to look up someone's skills and find a specialist who can operate a particular piece of equipment and see their availability, all those types of things available through our organizational chart. Time off, so putting in a request for a vacation or a sick day right from your mobile device just makes it easy and makes it more likely that people will do it instead of just having a no-show for the day. That supervisors and managers can be actively informed of an absence is very helpful. There's also the ability to have a pay stub access through the mobile application. So not needing to worry about, constantly updating addresses and where pay stubs are being sent, or if people don't have email addresses, which not everybody does. Most people seem to have a mobile device or have some type of tablet or mobile device available within the family, so you can actually access your pay stub right from there as well. Being able to quickly pull up and access quick guides. I mentioned manuals and standard operating procedures, but also just some step-by-step instructions of how to perform certain things. Sometimes when we're out in the field, and we get into a rhythm, we forget what the process is for requesting time off, or we forget what the process is, for particular scenarios. We can also pull up and link to, what the time off policies are, what the leave policies are. If there are any union documents that need to be relayed out, those can be done through the mobile device as well. We do also have the ability to take and participate in learning activities, as well as compliance-based trainings, which is particularly helpful if someone is showing up to a particular work site for the first time and needs to become oriented to that particular site and the work that's being done there, They can walk into a trailer or sit out by a check-in desk and write on their smartphone or a company tablet, participate in those activities. The system's going to track it, who did it, and when was it complete. Perhaps there's a mini assessment that needs to take place as well. All of that can be done through the mobile device. Employees and managers also have the ability to receive and request on-the-job observations or trainings. So an employee can make a request for an on-the-job training or an on-the-job observation if they want a supervisor to review the work that they're doing in a particular application. Or a supervisor could kind of on an ad hoc basis or perhaps tied to some type of work anniversary, go out into the field and observe someone performing a particular job or operating a particular piece of equipment and provide feedback on those particular tasks. I think sometimes we overlook the effectiveness that on-the-job training has. A lot of times we are geared towards doing some type of video recording or a quick clip of someone operating something. And sometimes it's nice to have that actual on-the-job training or observation where someone can work side by side with someone else and make sure that things are being done properly. And then finally, we also have reimbursements for benefits. So for a field or craft service worker to be able to request some type of reimbursement, perhaps for boots or a hard hat or something that they've had to go out and procure, they can make their request for that particular benefit reimbursement right through the mobile device as well. So just lots of features and functionality outside of the basic, address changes and things like that are really geared towards someone who works in a non-traditional environment and who maybe doesn't have ready access to some of the HR and training related things that someone in an office environment might have. Okay, let's move into a demonstration. I'm just going to go ahead and switch my screens up so that we can get logged in and walk ourselves through the demonstration. I've got a simple login screen. Our system, SAP SuccessFactors, supports single sign-on, but also usernames and passwords. And then, of course, the mobile application is geared for multi-users. So for people who might be sharing devices, desktops, laptops, mobile tablets, we make it easy for people to have access. This homepage that you're seeing here, this is what I was talking about when I said we put things right in front for people. We put it right in front of their fingertips so that when they're coming in, all they need to do is click on what they want to do. Are they going in to do some type of learning activity? Are they coming in for a safety briefing? Are they looking to make an update to their employee record? Do they need some type of equipment to accomplish a particular task? All of these pieces here just right at their fingertips. This particular site is branded with my company's logo and color scheme, and I put some hard hats here at the top. But of course, you can kind of brand and theme the site to make it your own. And these tiles that we have here around company updates, you can have different tiles for different groups of employees based on their role, based on their work location, based on their employee classification. So it's really possible to tailor this site for the type of user who might be accessing it. And when we logged into the system, we logged in as Maya, as our test user today. The system recognized who she was and what her role in the organization was. And as a result of that, it presented her with this streamlined page. So different types of users working in different environments or having different roles will have a different homepage experience just based on what it is that they might need. So if I want to come in and make an update to my employee record, I can do so by coming here and clicking on employee record, and it will take me right into the system. I also have my favorites set up so I can go in and participate in different processes here that are not listed in a quick button. One of them being employee files. That's going to take me right into my employee profile as well. One of the things that makes this system, I think, so versatile and so useful is that if I want to make some type of change, all I need to do is come here and click on that pencil icon to come and put my change in. And if I have new updated working permit information, again, I have a pencil icon where I can come and make my updates. On the HR data administration side, this to help keep this information accurate and up to date. So anytime an employee makes some type of change, a workflow notification can go out. So we're not just blindly changing data in the system without any oversight. The system has oversight built into it. The other thing that the system does for us is keep track of alerts and announcements. So you can see here there's an expiration date next year, 2022, for this particular work permit. The system has the ability to send reminders when that notification period starts to approach to the employee, to the employee's supervisor, to HR, whoever may need to receive that information. So in terms of keeping things up to date within the system is going to handle kind of the heavy lifting or the the reminders for us. And when something goes out of date, that can of course generate a notification or a reminder as well as pull into a report for people who have, in this case, expired work permits. Coming back to the home page, just clicking on my company logo, going to take us back to the home page. I do also have this alert icon in the top right-hand corner for things that require my attention, whether that's a learning activity or some type of performance request. I've probably received a notification either via email, if I have email, or a pop-up notice on my mobile device. I can also do some configuration that generates those notifications to my supervisors if I myself don't have access to something, so that my supervisor can alert me, and then perhaps I can go use a shared tablet to make those updates on my own. Just clicking here on this particular piece for those alerts and tasks that are waiting for me, I can see that there are some courses that I need to take on the training side. On the mobile application, those are kind of all waiting for me right up front so I can go in and access them. But here I can see a list of the courses that I need to go in and complete. You can see I do have an employee safety checklist that I'm engaged in. I can go and review that safety checklist here, as well as pull it up on my mobile device. This pulls in a safety checklist that I am participating in for Ed Allen. So I'm going and observing him performing his work or a particular task. This was scheduled for me, either Ed requested it or the system requested it automatically based on his anniversary date. Perhaps it is a part of his onboarding or orientation that he starts being observed performing certain tasks so we can evaluate how well he's complying to operating procedures. And you can see with just green checks and red X's that I can come and make my selections. I can come and put some expanded comments for each one, and then some overall comments. I can record a completion, record a failure, save it, and come back and do it later. We can also put in some counters for this process. Perhaps Ed is allowed to fail a certain number of items a certain number of times before it records an overall failure. So perhaps I can provide him with corrective instructions on how to complete safely a particular item where he was previously not compliant, and then perhaps we can repeat this process over again. We can also have these safety checklists and observation lists go out to multiple people. So perhaps a handful of us are observing ed over a period of time, and the system will compile and consolidate those overall scores for us all together. So lots of opportunity to do things, again, specific to people who work, you know, in a non-traditional office environment. Okay, I do want to switch gears real quickly from the desktop application into the mobile application and move quickly through a demonstration there. This is a generated view of our mobile application. You can see the mobile app is greeting the employee, listing out, again, those same quick tasks across the top, giving the ability for the employee to accomplish certain initiatives or activities. And if I want to come in and make a request for time off, I can do so. The system will default to the current date. I can choose my absence type. Perhaps I'm sick. Perhaps I want to request a vacation day. I can come in and pick a scheduled suggestion based on my team's availability and what other time off has been recorded from my team members. When I'm putting in this bit of information, the system is going to compare it to other different team members to let me know if there are any conflicting absences. Perhaps we have, you know, a team of a certain number of people and we need to make sure that we have coverage or can find a substitute for a particular role or skill set. The system will just kind of alert supervisors and team members to some of those overlapping absences. And when I'm done and ready to submit this, I can come and click the send button, and it's going to send that off to a supervisor for review and ultimately for approval. I do also have the ability to come in and work within my employee profile. So being able to come in and make changes to my own information. If I want to come in and perhaps update my address, I can do so by clicking on that pencil icon and again updating my address right from here. It's going to initiate a workflow, in this case to HR, so that information can be reviewed and approved. I didn't have to fill out a paper form. I didn't have to go to the job trailer to do it. I did not have to, you know, drive from site to a corporate office somewhere just to make this particular request. I've gone in and done it right here from my mobile device. And again, this happens to be a personal mobile device, but these pieces are also available on perhaps a company tablet or a shared device, because we do support use for multiple users. Okay, let me just switch back quickly to the last part of my presentation, which is a wrap up, and then we will move into some questions. So from a wrap up standpoint, I think we all understand that employees, regardless of the type of work they do, need the ability to get information to HR and receive information from HR. But employees who work in a non-traditional work setting, out in the field, or at a customer site, need the ability to do that, you know, through some different type of means or medium. Utilizing self-service is a great way to do that. Utilizing a mobile application is a great way to do that. We also know that field service and craft workers in particular have some different needs and requirements around their roles, just due to the environments in which they operate and the type of work they do, the equipment that they use. So there does need to be more of a focus on communication, around safety, around compliance, around training. And our system has the ability to kind of put a special spin on those activities for these types of employees, as well as make it readily available through our mobile application. So just a very nice and easy way for our system to be able to support employees regardless of where they work or the type of work that they perform. So moving from that mindset of SuccessFactors just being for professional employees and their development, and moving to being able to serve all employees regardless of what they do and to really offer some specialized features and functionalities for different groups of employees, as we've seen today. Okay, the last set of slides is just around questions. So any questions that you have, I would be happy to answer. I'm just going to pull up the chat because I see that we have a few questions coming in.
Yep, we do. Before we dive into all the questions, I want to give some time to everyone. If you do have some, to start submitting those in. We do have a few already, but I want to give a big thanks to you, Becky, for today's presentation. It was really insightful, but let's dive into some of these questions. So the first one I have here for you, Becky, is probably from the first half of your presentation today. For these types of workers, are there licenses I'm assuming this means, are there licenses listed as an active employee, like full costs, versus functional employee that would be a less costly license? There we go.
Ooh, that is an excellent question, and I'm almost kicking myself for not proactively mentioning that. We do have what we call a functional use license for employees who do not access the system on a regular basis, who only access it for learning or for pay stubs, or who maybe don't access it at all, or who are classified as contract. So we do have special licenses for different use cases. And a lot of organizations do use these special use licenses for different types of employees. That's an excellent question.
Awesome. I don't have any more questions coming in yet, Becky.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything you just want to quickly highlight that you didn't get to cover in your presentation today.
Yep, I see one or two coming in here. One is around offline content, and is that really available to be offline? Is there any type of special indicator for which content is available online versus offline? That's an excellent question. I assume you're referring to that learning content. So it is possible to have offline and downloaded content. And as a content administrator, when you go into the system and import that content, there's a series of checkboxes where you can indicate whether this should be available in a mobile format, and then if it should be available offline or not. And when someone takes that offline training and then eventually does connect back to the internet, it will actually sync back up with the system. So the system can record it as complete and mark it as such at that particular day and time. So it does sync back up to the system. There's another question here about those quick guides. Comment that you have never seen them before. That is actually a bit of functionality, again, within the learning management system, to have the ability to create those quick guides and then publish them out to different groups of employees. You can have an unlimited amount, and so you can put, your equipment-based quick guides for certain groups of employees, and then maybe your company policies, make them available for everyone. Using different permissions within the system, you can also determine who can create those quick guides. So a lot of my customers do utilize some sort of collaboration for some of those pieces. Perhaps you allow supervisors or very experienced employees to create those reference materials and share them out with team members. So they don't have to just be produced by the company. You can allow different users access to produce them as well. Okay, and then the last question here is just about actual usage and adoption for production and craft workers with the mobile application. It's funny, we actually had a customer that deployed this last year. They're a manufacturing group, and they rolled it out to roughly 1,000 employees in one of their local plants. And they received a 97% adoption on personal mobile devices from their production manufacturing employees. They did also set up some kiosks in break rooms at the manufacturing plant, but the 97% adoption was coming off of personal mobile devices. And some of the tools that we give you within SAP SuccessFactors allow you to run some numbers on usage statistics and points of access, and that's how they were able to determine that. And I think most people are starting to come around to the idea that even if you don't sit at a computer all day and you're not very fluent with how to use a laptop or things like that, that most people are becoming more and more comfortable with mobile devices, and that it's not the big hurdle that it used to be for people to utilize a mobile device for some of these things. And I think you'll find if you roll this out and introduce surveys, that people are happy to have the opportunity to have a means to interact with you, whereas before they possibly did not have such an easy time doing so. Okay, I think that's it for questions. So Rihanna, I'll turn it back to you, and thank you everyone for joining today.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining today. And if you happen to have any questions that pop up in your mind between now or leaving the broadcast, feel free to email us with our contact details that are available on this broadcast. A copy of the recording of today's presentation will be sent out to all attendees tomorrow afternoon. So if you want to take another look at today's presentation, you'll be able to look at it at your leisure. And with that being said, I'd welcome any feedback you have for us for today's presentation. And I'd like to thank you all for attending. In addition, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you all at our next webinar. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.